I want to show you the ray tracing in Spider-Man. I've been playing the game without ray tracing because I've seen some issues with the reflections being blurry. Um, with some artifacts. I made a video about that, but to be honest, on the city, I don't see those issues. I don't know why on the interior I was noticing that problem, but for the most part, it doesn't have a lot of issues. I do see some, like for example, if you see that texture on the building here. Let me point that with a remote. Let me point that. So you see, for example, this texture here, for some reason, is flickering. And that's not VRR flickering or anything like that. I don't have VRR right now. I just have VSync locked to 60. And with dynamic resolution scaling, I have all the graphics maxed out. So it has some issues, the ray tracing, but man, this is very, very good looking. So I was doing this mission. I've been playing the entire game without ray tracing. What I do is, instead of ray tracing, I just turn that off. I locked the frame rate to 100 frames with dynamic resolution scaling in DLSS, and I use black frame insertion at 100, and it's just too good. Too good, man. Just insane. It does require a lot of power, a lot of CPU power, and a lot of GPU power. But if you're fortunate enough to have that opportunity, try it, because it is really, really good. But if you want to try ray tracing and your GPU is powerful enough, but the CPU cannot do 100 frames locked, you can instead just push the ray tracing, lock the game to 60, and then use black frame insertion at 60 Motion Pro on high. So that's what I would do, basically. So right now I do not have black frame insertion. What I'm using is the HLG trick with tone mapping off. And this is definitely the most impressive picture you can get on this game. 100%. All the graphics max out. The game is locked to 60 with dynamic resolution scaling, so I'm getting as much pixels as my GPU can push at 60 frames. And I have that HDR effect, which is bananas. It's just insane. So let's take a look at some ray tracing flare here. So this is very, very good looking, really. We have, and I wish I could remove this, but I can point. We have this reflection here. The reflections of the building are looking so sharp and so awesome. And we also have the reflections of the pedestrians walking on the street. I do have to mention that this reflection of the people walking, it is lower frame rate. It might be like 15 frames per second. Definitely less than 30, because it looks so shaky. Like people walking on the street on the reflection, it is very low frame rate. It doesn't look good, to be honest. But it's a technical reason. They cannot give you the highest sharpness of those pedestrians, and they cannot give you the highest resolution for those trees. The trees are also low resolution. On the reflection, they have serious trailing artifacts. Like if you move the camera, it's just a blurry mess for some reason. But yeah, it's not perfect, but it is very nice. It is very nice to see that. And the reflections of the buildings, and again, this is ray tracing max out. The reflections of the buildings is like full resolution. There's no blurriness. The buildings are super, super sharp on the reflections. And also, it's very cool here that we have transparency. So this is a glass, so it allows us to see what's going on. You see the pedestrians walking here behind the glass, and at the same time we see the reflections of the buildings on the glass. So that's very, very nice. And I was actually using photo mode and trying to see if there's a way I could get a shot with reflections within reflections, but I think that that's not possible in this game. I mean, it would be really nonsense to use computing power to do that, because ray tracing is demanding enough already. So that is, reflections within reflections would be something. It would be a waste of computing power, really. And for example, we look at the helicopter here. This is awesome. You see the helicopter? This is just amazing. We're looking at the reflection of the helicopter here. That is very, very good. And also, let me see if I can catch that. I was able to see the birds. Sometimes we have some birds on the skies, and I was able to see the reflection of the birds on this glass. Let's see if we can get some birds. Okay, so we have some birds flying. See if I can catch them on the reflection. See if I can see where they are. Okay, they're over here. See if I can point that out. That's amazing, man. We can see the reflections of the birds. It's just very, very cool. Okay, you see, I don't know if you saw it. I saw it. you can go back in the video. It was visible. I don't know where they are right now. Yeah, I don't see them anymore. Yeah, but you can see them. It's awesome. Really, really, really impressive. And the reason why I turned ray tracing on was because on this mission I realized, okay, I don't see my reflection here. It's a huge, I mean, the screen is fully covered by glass. So I said, okay, let me try ray tracing and see how it looks. Okay, look at the birds. Look at the birds here. You see it? They are on the reflection. See if I can catch them better. Okay, yeah. No. So yeah, I was able to see it. You can go back on the video and see the reflections of the birds. So that's awesome, man. Really, really awesome. We can see the transparency, the pedestrians, and the reflections, and translucency, and and all that stuff. And it just works. Everything works. Like Jensen likes to say. So yeah, I mean, Spider-Man just looking phenomenal. It's an old game, but really, when you bring these older games to PC and you scale the games with all these features, it does look great. I mean, it just amazing. And really the way I play the game, this HDR effect is fantastic. But what I would do is just use black frame insertion. So yeah, I have right now black frame insertion set up on SDR, so it's just a simple button here. And yeah, it's not gonna look as impressive to you because it is, I mean, to me, it doesn't look as good. Just a static image, it doesn't look as good. No way. But when I move the camera, oh my god, the difference is so big. The difference is huge. With without black frame insertion, it's just blurry. 60 frames sample and hold is still blurry. So yeah, let me know what you think about ray tracing in these games. It is really something that looks amazing, but again, there's no way I can sacrifice the performance that I would get if I don't use it. Let me show you the settings just to show you what I was using here. Everything max out, ray tracing max out, and I turn off also bloom, because on the recording blooming just, the highlights are clipping and it looks worse on the recording. I'm not sure if it's bad. I prefer when I turn it off because it really washes out the picture a little bit, but maybe it looks more realistic. I mean, this is a cartoon, but it's an effect that might be worth considering. But I'm turning it off and it's looking a little bit better. So the way I play is really, I just do this 100, 100. I lock this thing, and it's just insanity. And I don't care about ray tracing or anything else. Well, actually, I have to turn off ray tracing, otherwise I cannot get that performance. So if I do that, everything max out to ray tracing. Well, actually, I'm locking the frame rate with Riva Turner statistics service. Let me go back. Let me open Riva Turner so I can change the. What I do is I use this program to lock the frame rate and get a much better, much more stable frame time on the game. So yeah, I lock this to 100 frames, and well, there are some places where I can get 100 frames even with ray tracing, but it's going to lower the resolution to the minimum. So you see I have ray tracing, 100 frames, and it's working on this shot. But it doesn't always work, and it's gonna drop not only because of the GPU, it's also gonna drop because of the CPU. But this CPU I'm using, the 5800X3D, is a beast. This is a beast. Ray tracing, and I'm still getting 100 frames. Man, that is very, very powerful, because ray tracing uses the CPU also. But I know I cannot get this performance. Like if I just go around the city, it's gonna drop. See, 89, 87, 83 frames, 85. So I cannot lock the frame rate. I wish I could make Motion Pro work at custom resolutions, because what I would do is I would create a 75 hertz resolution, custom resolution, and then at 75 I'm sure there's absolutely no flickering, and it will be smoother too. So yeah, what I do is basically, let me show you the difference. If I turn off ray tracing, let me show you the difference, how it looks. It is a big difference in this shot here. Huge difference. Huge difference. But I'm not getting those shiny reflections anymore. But this doesn't look bad at all. The only thing that is really okay, I'm missing my own reflection here. This is, immersion breaking, because there's no reflections of Spider-Man on the building. But the screen space reflections, they work very well. Of course, they are not sharp enough. They don't have as much information, but that's okay. That's not immersion breaking. This is like if you're looking at a mirror and you don't see yourself, that's immersion breaking. And I've seen non-ray trace games that are able to show at least your own reflections. I don't know why they're not able to do it here. So yeah, it doesn't work. But the biggest deal is basically when I am going over the city, I don't care, because I cannot see any ray tracing basically unless I'm looking for it. And yeah, the motion clarity I get with 100 frames black frame insertion is better than having 200 frames per second on an LCD, on a sample and hold monitor basically, even if it was OLED. So yeah, this is pretty amazing, but it requires a lot of power and a ridiculous amount of money. you have to spend so much money on these games that it's not worth it, to be honest. It's ridiculous. It's only for a privileged minority that can either afford it or can save like I did. Just save and work very hard to just purchase a dream basically. And you can do the same. Just work hard and save the money until you can get it. And if it's worth to you. It is not really worth it, to be honest. It's too much money for yes, you can play the game spending a lot less money if that's all you want to do. The game doesn't look good enough or realistic enough to be worth spending that much money. But it was worth to me, and it is worth for a lot of people, so you know, no judgment on that. If you have $20,000 and you want to spend that on a gaming setup, go for it and enjoy it. So that's it. Let me know what you think.